There is a specific kind of silence that only exists in the dead of winter in Chicago. It's not a peaceful silence. It's heavy. It presses against the glass of your windows like a physical weight, daring you to look outside at the gray, frozen world. They call the wind here the hawk because it cuts right through you. But 3 years ago, my friends and I found out that the cold isn't the only thing in this city that wants to hurt you. Sometimes buildings have memories, and sometimes those memories have teeth. My name is Mike. I'm sharing this story not to entertain you, but to warn you. If you are looking for an apartment and you find a deal that seems too good to be true, turn around, walk away, sleep in your car if you have to. Just don't sign that lease. To understand how this nightmare began, you have to understand where we were in life. I had just moved to Chicago from Ohio with my two best friends from college, Nick and Sam. We were broke, hungry, and desperate. Nick was the skeptic of the group, a loud, brash guy who worked in sales and didn't believe in anything he couldn't see or touch. Sam was the opposite. He was quiet, sensitive, an artist at heart, and deeply religious. He was the kind of guy who felt things too deeply, the kind of guy who absorbs the energy of a room the moment he walks in. We were living in a cramped sublet when our landlord gave us the notice. The building was being sold to developers. We had 15 days to vacate, 15 days to find a 3-bedroom apartment in one of the most expensive cities in America. Panic set in. For 10 days, I scoured every listing, every app, every newspaper. Nothing. Everything was either a closet or a mansion we couldn't afford. We were 5 days away from being homeless. Then, late on a Tuesday night, I found it. It was listed on a niche property app, hidden on the 4th page of search results. A 3-bedroom unit in a pre-war building on the north side. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, lake view. The price was wrong. It was listed for $1,500. That's less than half of what it should have been. I thought it was a scam. It had to be. But desperation makes you do stupid things. I called the number. The voice on the other end was dry, like dead leaves scraping across concrete. Mr. Blackwood speaking. I asked if the unit was still available. He said yes. He said he was the owner, and he lived in the building. He told me to come immediately. I went alone. The building sat on a quiet street, overshadowed by the skeletal structure of the L train tracks. It was an imposing structure of dark brick, covered in dead, brown ivy that looked like veins choking the masonry. It looked abandoned, even though I knew people lived there. Mr. Blackwood met me in the lobby. He was a tall, gaunt man, wearing a suit that looked 20 years out of style. His eyes were sunken, rimmed with red, as if he hadn't slept since the turn of the century. He didn't shake my hand. He just turned and walked toward the stairs. "Elevator is out," he muttered. "It's always out." We climbed to the 4th floor. The air in the stairwell grew colder with every step. When we reached the hallway of the 4th floor, the silence hit me. It wasn't just quiet. It was a vacuum. No sounds of TVs from other apartments. No cooking smells. Just the smell of old dust and something metallic, like copper or dried blood. He opened the door to Unit 4B. It was massive. The afternoon sun filtered through the dusty windows, casting long, sharp shadows across the floor. It was beautiful in a decaying, Gothic sort of way. "Why is it so cheap?" I asked, my voice echoing in the empty room. Mr. Blackwood stood by the window, looking out at the alley. He didn't turn around. "I need good tenants, quiet tenants. I am an old man, and I live next door in 4A. I do not want trouble. The last tenants, they were loud. They didn't last. I didn't ask what happened to them. I should have. God, I really should have. But I just saw the 3 bedrooms and the low rent. I wrote him a check for the deposit right there on the spot. When I brought Nick and Sam to see it the next day, the reaction was mixed. Nick was thrilled. He was already planning where to put the TV. But Sam stopped at the threshold. He stood in the hallway, staring at the brass number 4B on the door. He looked pale. "You okay, buddy?" I asked. Sam rubbed his arms. "It's cold, Mike. Can't you feel that? It's like walking into a freezer." Nick laughed at him, pushing past him. "It's Chicago in November, Sam. It's cold everywhere." But Sam didn't laugh. He walked in slowly, looking at the corners of the ceiling, like he was expecting to see something crawling there. "It feels heavy," he whispered to me, "like someone is watching us." We moved in on a Sunday. The first 3 days were fine. We unpacked. We set up the Wi-Fi. We started our new jobs. But the atmosphere in the apartment shifted when the sun went down. During the day, it was just an old apartment. At night, the shadows seemed to stretch. The long hallway that connected the bedrooms felt like a tunnel. You would walk down it and feel the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. An instinctive, primal warning that you were being hunted. The first incident happened on a Friday night. Nick and I wanted to blow off some steam. We decided to go to a bar down the street. Sam declined. He said he had a migraine. He said the air in the apartment was giving him a headache. We told him to get some rest. I remember locking the door. It was a heavy deadbolt. I heard it click. We left Sam alone, curled up on his mattress in the living room, reading a book. We were gone for maybe 3 hours. We came back around 2 a.m. The street outside was quiet. We walked up the 4 flights of stairs, laughing about something stupid Nick had said. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. The laughter died instantly. The apartment was pitch black. We hadn't left it like that. And it was freezing. I could see my breath in the air. "Sam," I called out. No answer. I flipped the light switch. Nothing happened. The bulb had blown. Nick used his phone flashlight to scan the room. We found Sam in the corner, wedged between the sofa and the wall. He wasn't reading. He was curled into a tight fetal position, rocking back and forth violently. His hands were clamped over his ears. He was soaking wet with sweat, despite the freezing temperature. "Sam!" I rushed over and grabbed his shoulder. He screamed. It was a high-pitched yelp of pure terror. He flinched away from me like I was about to hit him. "It's us. It's Mike and Nick," I shouted. Sam looked up. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, and filled with a terror I had never seen in a human being before. He looked at the front door, the door we had just walked through, and then back at us. "You locked me in," he whispered. His voice was trembling. "You guys left me." "Yeah, we went to the bar. We told you," Nick said, looking confused. "No," Sam shouted, tears streaming down his face. "You locked me in with her." The room went silent. "Who?" I asked. "Sam, there's no one here." Sam pointed a shaking finger at the front door. 10 minutes after you left." The crying started. It wasn't from the hallway, Mike. It was right there, on the other side of the wood. It sounded like a woman sitting on the floor, leaning against our door, sobbing, weeping, like her heart was being ripped out. He took a jagged breath. I went to the peephole to look. I thought maybe it was a neighbor. But when I looked, The hallway was empty, but the sound was still there, right below me. And then she stopped crying and she started scratching. Sam held up his hands to show us. She was scratching the wood, asking me to let her in. She kept whispering, "Why did you leave me? Why did you leave me?" Nick tried to rationalize it. He checked the hallway. He checked the lock. "It's the wind, Sam. Old buildings have drafts. It makes noises." But Sam wouldn't sleep in his room that night. He slept on the floor in my room, with the lights on. And I didn't sleep at all, because as I lay there in the dark, straining my ears, I heard it too. Faint, distant, a soft, sorrowful whimpering, drifting through the vents. Over the next week, the apartment began to rot us from the inside out. Sam deteriorated. He stopped going to work. He stopped showering. He lost weight rapidly. His skin turned a sickly shade of gray, matching the landlord, Mr. Blackwood. Sam would spend hours just staring at the front door, waiting. "She's angry," Sam told me one morning over coffee. "She hates men, Mike. She hates us." "Who is she?" I asked. "I don't know her name," Sam said, staring into his black coffee. "But I can feel her grief. It's suffocating. She thinks I'm him. She thinks I'm the one who hurt her." I wanted to break the lease. I told Nick we had to leave, but Nick was stubborn. "We paid 3 months rent up front, Mike. We can't just lose that money because Sam is having a breakdown. He needs a therapist, not a moving van." That decision almost cost Sam his life. The breaking point was the dinner incident. It was a Saturday. Sam had gone to his aunt's house for the day to get away from the apartment. When he came back that evening, he seemed different. He walked with a strange jerky gait. His head was tilted slightly to the side. And the smell, he reeked of cheap floral perfume. It was overpowering. Nick and I were cooking in the kitchen. We were making chicken. Sam was a strict vegetarian. He had been a Brahmin his whole life. He had never touched meat. The smell of raw meat usually made him gag. Sam walked into the kitchen. He didn't say hello. He didn't look at us. He walked straight to the counter where Nick had left a pile of raw, uncooked chicken trimmings. The fat, the gristle, the skin. Sam stared at the raw meat. "Sam, you hungry? We made salad," I said. Sam didn't answer. His hand shot out, grabbing a fistful of the raw, slimy chicken. Before we could react, he shoved it into his mouth. "Sam, what the hell?" Nick screamed, dropping his knife. Sam chewed loudly. The sound of the raw gristle crunching between his teeth was sickening. Crunch, squish, crunch. Grease and pink fluid ran down his chin. He didn't blink. He just stared straight ahead at the blank wall, chewing rhythmically. He grabbed another handful. I ran over and grabbed his arm. His skin was burning hot, like he had a fever of 105 degrees. "Sam, stop it. That's raw. You're gonna get sick," I yelled, trying to pry the meat from his hand. Slowly, mechanically, Sam turned his head to look at me. His eyes, they weren't Sam's eyes anymore. The pupils were dilated so wide that his eyes were entirely black pits. There was no recognition in them, only a deep, ancient malice. He smiled, a grin that stretched too wide for his face. Then his eyes rolled back into his head, showing only the whites, and he collapsed onto the kitchen floor, convulsing. We panicked. We carried him to his bed. He was unconscious, but his body was rigid, stiff as a board. We called a doctor, a friend of Nick's family who lived nearby. We didn't want to call an ambulance and have Sam committed to a psych ward if this was just a breakdown. The doctor arrived 20 minutes later. He checked Sam's vitals. He looked confused. "This doesn't make sense," the doctor said, checking his stethoscope again. "His heart rate is resting at 140 beats per minute. That's near a heart attack. But his body temperature, it's 90 degrees. He should be hypothermic. He should be shivering. But he's burning up." The doctor gave him a sedative and told us to monitor him. "If he doesn't wake up in an hour, take him to the ER." The doctor left. Nick and I sat by Sam's bed, terrified. The apartment felt smaller. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to be inching closer to the bed. Before we descend further into this nightmare, I have a question. Do you believe in the paranormal? If you are brave enough to hear more true stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We decode the darkest secrets of the world every week. Now, back to apartment 4B. An hour passed. Sam didn't wake up. But then, he started speaking. He didn't open his eyes. He lay perfectly still, flat on his back, but his mouth opened and a voice came out. It wasn't Sam's voice. Sam had a deep, soft voice. This voice was high-pitched, scratchy. The voice of a woman who had been screaming for hours. "Why are you here?" Nick jumped out of his chair. Did he just say that? The voice spoke again, louder this time. "You are all liars. Men are poison. You promise, and you leave. You promise, and you kill." Then, Sam's body began to contort. His back arched off the mattress in an impossible bridge. He began to vomit, but it wasn't food. It was a black, bile-like liquid that smelled of sulfur and rotting flowers. It poured out of him, staining the sheets. "We need help," I said, my hands shaking. "Not a doctor. We need spiritual help." I called Sam's father in Ohio. I told him everything. He didn't call me crazy. He just said, "I'm coming, and I'm bringing Uncle Patel." Uncle Patel wasn't a priest, but he was a man who knew things. He was deeply connected to the spiritual world. It took them 10 hours to drive to Chicago. Those 10 hours were a living hell. Sam would wake up, scream in that woman's voice, try to attack us, and then pass out. He scratched his own face until it bled. He kept screaming one name. "Ryan, Ryan, why did you do it?" When Sam's father and Uncle Patel finally arrived, the apartment felt like it was vibrating. Uncle Patel walked in, holding a small bag of saffron and sacred ash. He took one step into the hallway and stopped. He covered his nose. "Death," he whispered. "There is a very old, very angry death here." They went into the bedroom. Uncle Patel took one look at Sam, who was tied to the bed with belts for his own safety, and nodded. "He is not here right now. The vessel is full of someone else." Uncle Patel began a ritual. He lit camphor. He started chanting ancient Sanskrit mantras. The smoke filled the room. The moment the chanting started, Sam began to thrash. He hissed like a wild animal. He spit at his own father. "Get out!" The woman's voice screamed from Sam's throat. "He belongs to me now. I won't be alone again." Uncle Patel didn't stop. He tied a sacred red thread around Sam's wrist. As soon as the thread touched Sam's skin, smoke rose from his wrist. It burned him. Sam screamed, a sound that shattered the light bulb in the hallway. We were terrified. Nick was crying in the corner. I was holding the door shut, feeling like something was pushing from the other side. Suddenly, the chanting stopped. Uncle Patel looked exhausted. Sam went limp. He was breathing normally. "It is temporary," Uncle Patel said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The spirit is bound, but she is strong. This apartment, it is her grave. You cannot live in a grave. You must leave. Now." But we needed answers. We needed to know who we were fighting. We marched downstairs to 4A. We banged on Mr. Blackwood's door. The landlord opened it. He looked even worse than before. He saw Sam's father. He saw the red thread on Sam's wrist, and he collapsed into tears. "You knew," I shouted at him. "You knew what was in there." Mr. Blackwood slumped onto his floor, weeping. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I needed the money." "Who is she?" Uncle Patel asked sternly. "Emily," Blackwood whispered. "My granddaughter." The story finally spilled out. It was a tragedy that had been rotting in this building for 5 years. Emily had lived in 4B. She was young, beautiful, and full of life. She fell in love with a man named Ryan. He was everything to her. But Ryan was a predator. He used her for her money. He isolated her from her family. And he manipulated her. He promised her marriage. Then he cheated on her. He left her for another woman and laughed in her face. Emily broke. The betrayal shattered her mind. She became convinced that all men were evil, that all men were liars. She stopped leaving the apartment. She sat by the door for weeks, waiting for him to come back and apologize. One winter night, Emily swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills. She crawled to the front door, pressing her back against it, hoping that if Ryan came back, he would find her there. She died alone, crying against the wood. "I found her 3 days later," Blackwood sobbed. "I couldn't sell the place. No one would buy it. So I rented it. But every time a young man moves in, she thinks it's him. She thinks it's Ryan coming back to hurt her again. Or she wants to punish him. I don't know. She is consuming my son," Sam's father said, his voice trembling with rage. "Because he is a man. Because he is vulnerable." "We are leaving," I told the landlord. "Keep the deposit. Keep everything." We ran back upstairs. We didn't pack. We didn't clean. We grabbed our wallets, our phones, and the keys to the car. We dragged Sam, who was barely conscious, out of the bed. As we helped Sam walk down that long hallway toward the exit, the temperature dropped. The scratching sound started again, coming from inside the walls. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Just as we crossed the threshold of the front door, Sam stopped. He planted his feet. He turned his head slowly to look back into the empty apartment. His lips moved, and in that same terrifying woman's voice, he whispered one last thing. "You can run, but you can't hide from a broken heart." Then, the heavy front door slammed shut by itself, inches from my face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. We drove. We didn't stop until we were out of Illinois. We took Sam back to Ohio. It took months of therapy, prayers, and healing for him to come back to us. He remembers nothing of those 2 weeks. He doesn't remember eating the meat. He doesn't remember the voice. But Nick and I remember. We never went back for our clothes. We never went back for our furniture. It's all still there, gathering dust in Unit 4B. I checked the listing the other day, just out of curiosity. The apartment is listed again. Spacious 3-bedroom, historic charm, immediate availability. The price has dropped to $1,200. So, if you are in Chicago and you find a deal that seems too good to be true, if you walk into a hallway and smell old dust and copper, if you feel the air get heavy, run. Because Emily is still waiting by the door, and she is very, very lonely.